zone. Going nowhere fast, we're driving on till dawn. Hear the engine roar out loud. We're gonna scream and shout, cause that's what we're all about. Singing, what are you waiting for? Let's go, yeah. What are you waiting for? Let's go, yeah.
Hey, all right. Hey, thank you, Triple Scoop Music, once again for that great countdown music. We really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Real Picture. I'm your host, Greg Gibson. And, well, they're back. Our all-star panel of top photographers from around the world is back once again to share their stories with you on how they are coping both personally and professionally with this global pandemic that has gripped us all. This really is a crazy time, and this truly is the first time we've all been so deeply affected by a crisis on such a global scale. This pandemic has affected every single one of us in very much the same way, and I find it fascinating to hear how everyone deals with it and how everybody copes with it in their own unique way. Now, it was just over a month ago that we did our first show with this panel, and we thought it would be a good idea to come back and share a bit about what, if anything, has changed in what we're doing and what our outlook might be during this time. Now, if you didn't catch the last show, it was an information-packed marathon session that went on for nearly 4 hours, but it was an honest and open discussion, and all of these folks really opened their hearts and their minds to share with you what they've been going through. Now, one thing I can promise you guys tonight is that this show will not be 4 hours long. We have implemented some changes to the format, and there's going to be a 90-minute hard stop. So we'll go as hard and fast as we can for 90 minutes, but we're going to end the show there, and maybe we can get everybody to come back again in another month to catch up again if we need to. So I know it's long, but I do encourage you guys to go back and listen to that very first show. It wasn't a particularly visual show. We didn't really go through any images or anything. So I think it makes for a really great podcast. So listen to it while you're out for a walk or a run or a drive, or you're in the car or working at your computer or wherever you typically listen to a podcast or music if you are into those types of things. We do now finally have a custom URL for this channel. So let me put up my social media links here. So you can now find us at youtube.com/TheRealPictureTV. We also have a Facebook page, and I've listed that down there below as well. And you can get some information there and engage with us there. And we also have an Instagram account. Now, when we did the first show with this panel last month, this channel was brand new. And since then, we've produced some really good content that I think you're going to find both interesting and inspirational. In particular, I encourage you guys to take a look at The Real Picture number 5 at the White House with New York Times photographer Doug Mills. Doug gave us a behind-the-scenes tour of the White House briefing room with his cell phone, actually. That was freaking fascinating. It's a behind-the-scenes view at the White House that few people ever really get to see. So I really encourage you guys to take a look at that. That's been our most popular show to date. But we have other great shows. We did one with Gary Hirschhorn on his fantastic Manhattan Cityscapes project and the New York skyline, as well as Matt Mendelson on his Not Forgotten project. And that project in particular has received a ton of national media attention. Matt has been photographing all 500 seniors at his daughter's high school to tell the story of each and every one of them and convey the sense of loss they all feel over missing out on some of the basic rites of passage, like not having their graduation or not having their senior prom, and not even be able to defend their state championship in soccer. So take a look at those. I think that you will find those shows inspiring. So for the channel, we do now have a short-term goal to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of June. I think we have a little over 400 right now. So if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're not new here and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, then shame on you and hit it extra hard right now. Having 1,000 subscribers unlocks some features for us that is going to allow us to make the channel more interesting for you, as well as to make our content much easier to find. So please do hit the subscribe button, give us a few likes, engage with us in the live chat, and leave us some comments after we're done to let us know what you thought. It doesn't cost you anything to do that, and having you engage with us and participate with us here really does make doing this all the more worthwhile. So I've already lined up my next couple of shows, in fact. So on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be joined by the one and only Jerry and Melissa Jonas to talk about Jerry's recent battle with COVID-19. Yes, it's true. If you haven't heard, Jerry did come down with a fairly serious bout of COVID, and he struggled with it for a while. But he is recently feeling better, and both he and Melissa have agreed to come on the show and talk about their firsthand experience with the virus. And then early next week, I have a show that probably Monday or Tuesday I'm going to do that I'm kind of excited about. I'm going to be hosting a show on the evolution of digital photography into the mainstream. Now, I don't really blow my own horn very often, but I was, in fact, actually a very early pioneer in digital photography. And one of my few claims to fame is that I actually shot the first magazine cover that was ever captured with a digital camera back in October of 1992. So I've lined up some of those other great early pioneers to discuss the transition from film to digital, and that should be a really good show. If nothing else, it should be entertaining because some of these guys can tell some really mean stories, and so it should be a lot of fun. So look for an announcement on that once we have the date and time finalized. So that is all the housekeeping I have for this show. I'm going to bring on the panel now. Let me just pull everybody up. And hey, there they are. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Greg.
Hi.
Everybody
Hey,
here?
everyone.
Hello.
Yep, I think we're good.
Hi.
So I'm really excited to have you guys back. Let me just really quickly introduce everybody. So next to me, up in the top middle, this is Cliff Mautner from Philadelphia. Next to Cliff is Marcus Bell from Brisbane, Australia. Below him is the one and only Sarah Ferrara from Italy. In the middle, right in the Mrs. Brady, I think that's the Mrs. Brady square in the middle, is Jose Villa. Next to Jose Villa, we have Corbin Gherkin, who has graciously agreed to fill in for Tracy and Dee from 37 Frames. They weren't able to join us this week, so we're missing them, and hopefully they'll be back with us next time. But we appreciate Corbin stepping in, and we're really looking forward to hearing some of the things that she has to share. Underneath Corbin is Rocco Ancora from Melbourne, Australia. The one and only Sanjay Jogia from the United Kingdom. And last but not least, we have Salvatore Dimino, another visitor from Italy. So welcome, everybody. So now initially when this crisis hit, a lot of us were sort of in a state of shock. We were trying to figure out how to manage the waves of postponements and cancellations. And it's been about 2 months now. There's a little more time has passed. There's been a little bit of a sort of sobering up period, and hopefully everybody's starting to see things with a little bit more clarity now. So I'm going to jump over to the panel, and I just want to kind of hear a little bit about what everybody's done for the past month. So I'm just going to give everybody a chance to sort of have a like a little 5-minute catch up on what they've been doing for the last month. So Marcus, I think that we are going to start with you, my friend.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, thanks
Marcus.
for having us on, Greg.
Let me get you up. Sorry.
There he is.
Awesome. So welcome, everyone. Welcome back, and hope everyone is going okay through these, crazy times. And like Greg said, I think that first 4 weeks, that we of experiencing was pretty chaotic. There was a lot to deal with, and I think for the first time, it was both, from a business sense, but also personally. So it was interesting. I think for me, there was definitely a change after, that we last spoke. I think I was very fortunate that I had something to work on, because obviously there's been no weddings. And that's where I've got an exhibition which was going to be in a gallery, starting tomorrow. But now it's going to go online. So my focus, has gone into that. And it's been really probably like a blessing in so many ways. I think, it's been a blessing from both personally, professionally, and I think even just probably for my, sanity. Because I think, while it's been nice not, going out to, having a little bit of extra time, I've noticed all these calendar appointments pop up saying, you're supposed to be at a wedding today, and not being there, and, and then thinking about that couple that, that they've, really had to change their entire life, and postpone everything. And I think a big shout out to all our clients and, around the world that we've been able to, fortunately, everyone's just postponing, and we'll continue to do that, whilst this pans out. But hopefully, we may be like 3 or 4 months away before, to go back to shooting, smaller weddings again. So we are lucky in Australia that, we've had low cases, and the government's looking at, letting us loose out into the big wide world, which is like I'm finding really important. And I think I can understand. Well, actually, I probably don't really understand how tough it must be, on the people in Italy. One of my joys is going to the beach and going out for a surf. And, for a month, I wasn't able to go once into the water. And I find it like an important cleansing, thing for me to just sink into that, sea water, catch a few waves. And not being able to do that has been really difficult. And I imagine everyone has their own little thing that they love doing that they can't do right now. So fortunately, we're coming out of lockdown on, this coming in 2 days' time. So we're allowed to drive to the beach, and partake a little bit more in life. So that's unfolding. But the good thing for me is that like I said, been working on, some personal work. I think, what I've found is that like I'm good at coming up with excuses all the time. I always put my clients first, and I always, I've got that work to do. And so I then have this habit of putting off everything that I shoot for myself, to the corner. And I found that, this COVID thing is making people honest with themselves. They're asking themselves questions and things like that and challenging themselves. So that's been really wonderful for me, and I'm looking forward to, launching a body of work tomorrow. And the good thing is that I've been able to, been working on 3 or 4 different series of work that I'll be able to release over the coming year. So that's exciting. And so, things are looking up here, and so it's been good. So looking forward to hearing everything that everyone else has got to say.
Awesome, Marcus. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to seeing some of this new work that you've been putting out. So let me jump over to let's jump over to Jose. Jose, are you ready?
Yeah. All right. So thanks for having me again, and thanks for joining those that are on here. Nothing has really necessarily changed, I don't think, as far as my mental state goes. I tend to be a positive person. I tend to, just keep thinking that things are going to get better. Things are going to be okay. Unfortunately, though, it seems as though more and more weddings, even now, closer to fall, are starting to postpone. So it makes me believe that there may not even be a wedding we will be shooting this year.
Wow.
As far as the numbers go, more than 50 guests is definitely what I'm seeing is probably not going to be a thing. I have actually just recently booked a couple weddings for this year for 50 or less, so that's really good. It's really promising. So that has definitely changed a little bit. But my little flow for the day and for the week really is just come to the office, get ready, get dressed like I always would. I don't want to get into the rhythm of not, of lounging around at home. Studio is great. I've been very fortunate to have a studio outside of my home. So it gives me a little bit of time to just sort of really focus on my business and my clients. I get here to the office and I work maybe just like 3 or so hours a day, emailing, calling people, checking up on my friends, checking up on wedding planner friends, other vendors in the industry, even friends I went to high school with. Continue to just pick up the phone and just call people. How are you doing? And just making sure that that we communicate. I think that's really important. Yeah, and so other than that, I mean, at home, I'm working on a veggie garden, which is really cool. I've never planted anything ever in my life, so that's kind of fun. We got some corn coming in. We got some watermelon. So I'm really excited about that. And, we're enjoying our beautiful property. I think, since we all are so busy, we make ourselves so busy with our work. I finally have a chance to really, explore the land a little bit on our property. And I've worked so hard for almost 20 years to be where we're at with our dream home. But now here we are, no work, right? So I'm freaking out, just to be completely honest with all of you. But things are okay. I mean, I think that there are wedding planners that do talk to a lot more clients than I do, and it seems as though a lot of the newer 2021 weddings are more January, February, March, and April, so the beginning of the year. So I've been kind of booking weddings here and there through the first part of the year, which is great because I know that right now for sure my June and my July, August are completely booked, but not with new weddings. They're booked from postponements from 2020. So that is promising. Other than that, we are still working on albums for clients, which is great. I've been able to reach out to pretty much almost all of our clients from the last 3 years or so, and just sort of a gently a reminder that they still might have an album in their package. The great thing with that is that I'm able to upsell it to albums that are more pages or bigger albums or parent albums. So that's actually helped a little bit, which has allowed me to keep my employees. The good news. Yeah, and it's tough, but the good news is that I did apply for PPE, the Payroll Protection Plan program. I mean, and I was accepted. So I just recently got my funds in last week, thank goodness, because that's gonna hold me over with my employees for an additional 2.5 months. And currently, up until actually yesterday, I was still paying my staff, and now with the additional 2.5. Months of help has been pretty amazing. So I'm definitely relieved. My staff is still working from home, and here in California, currently today, the lockdown is still May 30th. But I just heard on the radio, crazy coming to the studio today, Los Angeles County. But I'm not in Los Angeles County. I'm in Santa Barbara County. But Los Angeles County has now extended to July. So I'm hoping that doesn't into Santa Barbara County. We'll see how that goes. But I am noticing, since my studio is in the city, more and more smaller businesses are starting to open up their doors. So that is definitely promising. We'll see what happens here in the next month or so.
Well, that was interesting because I had heard that, I didn't know that it was just Los Angeles County. I had heard that some parts of California had extended into July. Here in Virginia, we're on lockdown until June the 10th. Actually, and they just released the plan. So we have to go 14 days with a downward trend in numbers before they can actually go into phase 1. And then in order to get to phase 2, we have to go another 14 days with downward trending numbers before we can get into phase 2. And so that's kind of where we are. And I hope that we're going to have those kind of numbers. All right, let's jump to Salvatore. Welcome.
Oh.
Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too, Greg. Thank you for inviting me, and hi to everyone that's following. So it's since the last month that we get in touch. It's a bit better here in Italy because now it's working almost the same like it's happening there in US. A week ago, I opened my studio again, half day, with all the restrictions. So you think better. Actually, it's getting better because now you have an excuse to get out from your home. And I've been working for the last 2 months. Didn't change. Didn't have big change for me. I mean, I was always working because I had a lot of stuff to do by working and designing my albums for my clients. And one of the good things that I really appreciate from these 2 months and a half is that I get in touch with all my clients, calling them. I remember today I had a call with a bride that she postponed the wedding at the first time. She's supposed to get married in May, and she postponed it in October. And now she called me today, and we spent 1 hour on the phone talking about what can she do. We're talking about our families. So the relationship with all my couple is getting really, really good now. And that's something that I really appreciate because the relationship is very important with your client. And this wasn't a good excuse to get in touch with all of them. And by the way, like I said, I'm still working. designing album, and one of the best things that I had more time for my dog Jerry, because I learned in this 2 months and a half. I learned a lot of stuff with him. He start like following me now because every day we are together and we spend like 2 hours a day together. And I never have that time before. So that is that is one of the good things that happened during these 2 months. And of course, I enjoy more life with my wife at home. I think I'm like having an appetizer every 3 hours probably. So I'm getting really fat. So as you said, I'm also a positive. I'm always thinking positive. So I try always to see the light in everything and not the shadows. And well, what I feel is that my business. I mean, even if it feels like we're not going to shoot weddings this year until maybe October. I don't know if we have a chance to do some weddings, because here, especially in Sicily, we have a lot of guests, like 300 and 400 guests for every wedding. So I think that will be very difficult that someone, get married with that numbers. I really think that for this year, we're not going to shoot much. But the thing is that next year is going to be crazy, because there are two things. All the clients, all the weddings that I'm supposed to have this year, they are postponing for next year, asking me when I am available, because we already have a contract, so they want to keep me anyway. So that's what's happening. But the good thing is the ones that are calling me for 2021, or you actually say 2021. Sorry for that. I'm from Italy, so I always speak in Italian and I speak in English. As I was saying, at the same way, they are calling me and they know what's going on. So they say, "What about June? Do you have any dates? Because I know for sure that you're really booking." So my feeling is next year is gonna be crazy. So we only need to resist for keep tight everything for until the end of the year. But next year is going to be crazy. Next year is going to be crazy in terms of business. Wow, all the time that I had for these 2 months and a half, I always think about these 2 months, because next year I think I have time to think about it. So this is what's going on. So it's getting better. It's getting better. Absolutely.
One of the key takeaways I remember from you last time was you were talking about being proactive with your clients, and that your clients really looked at you as being the expert, when really you didn't know any more than the clients did, but they felt comfortable you as being the expert. And so have you sort of kept that up? Have you been still out there trying to advise your clients, and just because I think what really came out of that was you opened that dialogue with the clients, and so you were able to work out some things and quell some of those fears, and work out some things with them that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do if you had just sort of left them in the dark.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I think last week a bride just asking me, and she said, "What do you think about my marriage in October? If I get married?" I said, I was at the beginning. I was a little bit rude in terms of, I said, "Well, I don't think you're gonna. We don't have no chance to do a shooting like you think, or wedding like you think." And she started crying.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I said, "Oh, listen to me. Just stop a minute and listen to me." I said, "Think about your day and think about the colors that you imagine that you're supposed to get married in June, and you postpone for October." And I said, "So why should you not do that wedding how you dream all your life?" I said, "No worries. The love's not going to change. I mean, it's going to change only for 1 year. The love will stay there. You just need to change the year. It's not a big deal. I'm sure that for that wedding, for that day, for next year, it's going to be a beautiful day, a crazy day. We're going to make amazing pictures, and you're going to look beautiful. Don't think about to 2020 or to 2021. So at the end, after 1 hour talking, so this is the good things, because now when we're going to see each other, we're going to hug each other for sure when we have a chance, because we become good friends. So I think this works a lot for us. For our business, this works a lot.
Good. Let's jump over and hear from our new person. Let's hear from Corbin. So welcome, Corbin. Thanks for joining us today. And because you have a little more ground to cover, I'm going to give you a little extra time to kind of talk about where you've come from.
Okay, sounds good. Well, So I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, has somebody have somebody's got audio up on their computer?
Let's try it now.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Yeah, so I live near Princeton, New Jersey, and I moved up here a couple years ago. And so when all of the COVID stuff was happening, I was actually down south in Charleston, South Carolina, and I live now in New Jersey with my husband and my 3-year-old, and we sort of realized that things were starting to happen. We were on spring break because he's a photography teacher at a prep school, and we wanted to just go ahead and get back up to New Jersey. So I guess it was around March 13th, we drove back up to New Jersey, and we really did not leave the house for, I guess, about a solid month. And I was experiencing the same thing that I think all of you guys probably went through and that first week of your initial March and April weddings, just saying that we're postponed. And there was definitely a sense, I think, of client panic, not knowing when to postpone to, people sort of not understanding the notion of postpone instead of cancel. And then I think at the same time, it was very new for me as well. I was starting to just think about how to handle this. I was thinking a little bit certainly in terms of a small business, and having clients look at dates for next year, giving me the realization that I was, if we have realistically the season where I am, it's about 22 weekends that I would feasibly have to shoot. I was looking at about half of those weekends being taken up by postponements, and I was certainly having some anxiety about that. So I think initially I was in kind of, oh my God, what do we do here mode? And I'm sure you guys talked about this last time. I mean, I definitely texted Jose and like, big brother, what do you think? Like, how should we handle this? And it was an initial week of a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of, how do we process just what's happening? How are we going to rally? If other friends aren't available for dates, we have friends who had weddings in the States that were going to be stuck in, coming over from Europe, wouldn't be able to make that trip. So certainly this feeling of community coming together. But I think on a personal note, I mean, I initially felt somewhat paralyzed by the whole experience. And then I went into thinking about aspects of my business that maybe I could take this time to see where my pain points were maybe in my business, and see where things could be improved. So I think rather than going in a more emotional direction, I really turned more towards new business practices. I started a class that a friend was putting on. I read Mike Michalowicz's Profit First. I wanted to go into an approach that was more concrete reactions and more concrete fixes to issues within the business. And then, when it came to responding to clients, I mean, I absolutely agree that communication has been really key. Of course, the first week of the handful of postponements, it was more the client reaching out to me first. But now I have proactively reached out to all of my clients for this year, and just to kind of see where they're at, discuss what it would look like to postpone their wedding and how that might work for next year, just so that we can get a little bit ahead of the situation. But yeah, we're hanging in there. I mean, it's a bit crazy. I know I mentioned, Greg, to you over the phone, I did have a very small event that after basically a month of isolation, that I traveled to last weekend when Texas reopened. And that was certainly nerve-wracking to an extent. The travel aspect of it, I was nervous, and I did take every necessary precaution, but I think we're just in an environment right now that it feels frightening to travel. I'm ultimately glad that I did the wedding. It was really a wonderful reminder of what weddings are all about. And even when there's only a handful of people, how the thing that I originally loved about photographing weddings really still exists. So I think it's going to move into a shift in just how we look at celebrations. And I'm kind of thinking about ways to gear up for that for 2021, how to tailor my offerings to those new types of weddings. But hang it in there.
Well, that's interesting. So we'll come back and talk a little bit about the wedding that you shot in a few minutes. But
sure.
Also, like you mentioned being proactive, which I was just talking to Salvatore about, and I do think being proactive and reaching out and talking to your clients about those situations is really helpful, because then you can sort of guide them to the outcome that you want to get to. So it becomes sort of a mutual decision. By being proactive and reaching out, you can play a role in sort of getting the outcome. And compromise
absolutely.
with them on what the outcome might be. All right, let's see who's up next. How about we jump to our other man from down under? How about we jump over to Rocco?
Thanks, Greg, and thanks for the opportunity once again to share our experiences during these somewhat interesting times, I have to say. Initially, as we spoke about last time, once we got over the initial shock of what was going on, for me especially, there was a different mindset that I had to apply to get over my own fear of what was happening, and it felt originally like the end of the world. But then, we started to get on with things, and I became a little bit more extremely proactive in business and with all other aspects of what I wanted to do with personal projects and et cetera, et cetera. So we've extensively been working on new website content and revamping the website and thinking about creative marketing ideas moving forward, because although what we're going through at the moment is bad, we know that it's not going to last forever. And I think being proactive and being ready for when things will get back to normal, I think that's really, really important. So both on the wedding aspect side of things, we've been working on content for that, but then also on the other part of the business, which is the post-production, fine art, printing, and education side. Prior to all of this happening, I had a lot of workshops that I had booked globally. That's all kind of finished and was done and dusted within a couple of days of the announcements of lockdown. So a lot of that content now I've recorded, and that'll be available online, which has been great. A lot of the
that's very cool.
Yeah, a lot of the in-person stuff that that was meant to have happened with teaching people fine art, printing, and so on, turned into online one-on-one sessions, which has been really, really good. With the wedding side, we've been fortunate so far because all we've had is postponements, so everything's been pushed forward, and that's been good. So we haven't had anyone cancel outright, and even though our contracts are pretty watertight, you just don't want to have that awkward conversation with a client. So we've been really, 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 really fortunate. With myself, there was a notion that, I wanted to take this time originally to, to grow personally. And that's starting to slowly happen. I've started the research phase of a massive personal project, which will probably take me 12 to 18 months to complete. And that's a positive, because before this pandemic, all that was just a romantic photographic notion in my head of what I'd like to do with my creative aspects of photography. And now it looks like it'll be becoming a reality, which I'm really, really super excited. Just to put it into perspective of what Australia's going through at the moment, the lockdown has had incredible positive results in numbers. Originally, we had, just under 7,000 people infected to date. However, active as of yesterday, I think there was only 680 cases. And our numbers, because of what the government's done, our numbers have come down to around under 20 infections a day, Australia-wide. So our population is not as big as other parts of the world. We're only 25 million, but that's significant because that means our infection rate is less than 1%, and that means that there is a little bit of confidence in people going out there and mingling, which is good. So what the government's done now, we're allowed to have 5 at our home. Before this, we weren't allowed to have anyone. We're literally locked down. 5 visitors. You can have 10 people outdoors. Weddings now, you can have weddings of 10 people, which I'm not sure who's going to go with that kind of option. Funerals are now up to 30 people if you have them outdoors. So there is a little bit of confidence slowly trying to creep in, and this will happen. These changes will happen as of midnight tonight in my state, and it's going to be different for each state depending on what each state decides to do with how they decide to open up the economy again. So the government has set out a plan, and it's going to be done in a couple of stages. With the work side of things, there's going to be a big shift and a big change in the way that we interact with clients. So the government is putting out basically procedures that need to be followed to make sure everyone stays healthy with hand sanitizers, distancing, signage, et cetera. That's a huge positive now for us because it means that because we can have small gatherings and small groups, portrait side of the business that is viable if we can shoot portraits outdoors. Excuse me. But even having someone coming to a studio for a headshot or a portrait is a feasible option the way I read it. As long as we maintain social distancing, as long as we have correct ventilation, et cetera, et cetera. So, things are positive, and as long as we maintain that social distancing, and I think there's a lot of apprehension from people being in closed environments together for any long period of time. I don't know how long it's going to take for that fear to actually dissipate. As far as large number weddings, we're still waiting. We still don't have a answer from the government as to when we can have 50 or 100 people in a room. So fingers crossed, though, our numbers may remain the way they are and continue to decrease, and things are going to look up.
Yeah, those are really encouraging numbers. Okay, let's jump down to our man in the United Kingdom. How about Sanjay?
Hi, thanks for having me back, and thanks again, everybody. It's an interesting time. I can't believe it's been a month, actually.
I know it seems like it was just yesterday that we were doing this. It's flown by.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like a long time ago, if that makes sense.
True, it does.
It's a weird time. I think in isolation, we've just all lost all sense, all perception of time and everything. It's like middle of May now, and where's the year going? It seems to go faster and faster every year, and this one is just not written off. It's curious because I kind of feel a bit like not much has changed, but a lot has changed. I think in basic terms of status quo, there have been some subtle nuance, subtle changes between the last time we and because there have been a few developments. I think more than anything else, it's like I'm just echoing what everyone else has said. The shock has subsided, but anything else, the industry themselves, existing brides and grooms, especially new brides and grooms, have begun to accept the way things are, and not just accept, but they're beginning to adapt to the situation and how we need to sort of move forward and try and deal with it. I think Salvatore touched on it slightly when he said, new brides and grooms for 2021 are, and even later on, are, they know that our availability is potentially limited. So we have the same situation. We're getting regular inquiries. We are taking bookings, which is amazing. No one thought that would happen right now, but we're taking bookings because it's so much down the line. I think brides and grooms for here are actually just accepting that will be a different kind of wedding. There'll be a new knows what the laws and the regulations will be around weddings. I shoot in weddings with at least sort of 200-300 people minimum, usually more like sort of 40 people. And there was an announcement a couple of days ago that they basically this as of this week they're beginning to initiate the kind of the easement plan for lockdown. It's a little bit vague at this stage, unfortunately. We are not out of lockdown yet. Generally, there have been people who have been complacent. There have been people who have flouted the lockdown rules and are still having get together, don't respect the 2 meter distance. I'm certain there are people who don't understand what 2 meters is or are, and it's these people who are not paying attention and don't really care because they think, well, I'll mind my own business. But what they don't realize is that their business affects everyone else's health and therefore livelihoods. I don't think that's because they've gotten away with it so far. They don't really realize, their action or inaction will potentially have a consequence. So either way, if the numbers continue to reduce, and they've been reducing slowly over here, we have had a big number of cases and deaths in the UK, probably one of the biggest in Europe. I think maybe the biggest in Europe. I'm not sure. If those numbers continue to go down, what they call the R number, then actually they'll continue to follow this plan that they laid out, and so we could see small weddings happening by July. Most of our brides and grooms cancelled. So almost everybody's postponed. We've got some late in the year, and we kind of expect those to happen now. And potentially new brides next year are very cautiously hoping that people are available. Good news. And I'll touch on a point I made last. I'll touch on it quite early, just in case the question is raised. Because there is that demand and there is that sense of urgency with new brides and grooms. Like Salvatore said, there will be a lot of work next year. It's going to be crazy. We'll have all of this next year's work. There'll be a tsunami of income coming in, which will basically, it means great demand for us. So, we've stood our ground. We've maintained our strategy. We've maintained our business and our pricing. And I think everyone should do the same and not succumb to the unknown or uncertain and begin reducing pricing now, because it's necessary. It's just something you'll regret later, having made the wrong move. But we're staying positive. We're keeping all the brands I work with are busy. So I've been working on some interesting projects, learning new skills, working with brides and grooms, staying in touch with friends in the industry. So doing what we need.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sanjay. We're having a little trouble with your audio, buddy, so we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. But okay. I do remember last show you talked quite a bit about encouraging people to maintain their pricing, and we're going to come back to that. And I want to come back and talk a little bit about inquiries and bookings too. So we'll come back to that in just a bit. So let's jump down to our other our British Italian. They're up in the Lombardy region of Italy. So let's hear from Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me back. This is amazing. I'm so happy to see everybody healthy and happy, and we're all back here. We're still here. We're still fighting after a month. Yeah, Sanjay, has it been a month? I can't believe it. It does also feel like a whole year. So what's going on in Lombardy right now? Well, after a couple of months of very, very strict, hard lockdown, and by that I mean one person per household allowed to go out to the grocery store, to the nearest grocery store, with a legal paper per week. So in some households, that's, assuming a husband and wife might take it in turns, that means leaving the house maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that. It's now started to loosen up. They opened up on the 4th of May, and we were allowed outside to exercise, and that has just changed everything.
Wow, you guys could not even go outside to exercise?
No, we were allowed within 200 meters of our front door.
Wow.
So you could sort of just walk up and down the road in front of the house.
Yeah, for me that's been a big relief, because I try to get a 4 or 5 mile run in, or a walk, at least a walk in every day, and oh my gosh, I didn't realize that you guys were that tight.
Yeah, it was that tight. It was literally, you don't put your nose outside your house, outside your front door, unless it's to go for the shop. And so the atmosphere when I got in the car to go and do my shop, I felt like Will Smith in I Am Legend, driving through with the, that was the feeling. It was just so surreal. It was like, even the birds weren't singing in the road. It was, everything was it was just a ghost town. It was very, very strange, apart from the ambulances, in a small, tiny little, hillside village where I live, and a little small town. Yeah, ambulance sirens constantly, all throughout the day and the night, which, it's not Manhattan. It was just, I'll be triggered for many, many years to come. Every time I hear an ambulance, it's going to bring me back to this time. So, but now, literally the day that we were allowed out to exercise, I went out, I drove my car down to the river and went out for a walk, and it just changed everything. I did a 5 mile walk. Oh my God, it just changed everything. And now I've been out, I go out every day to do that exercise now, and seeing people riding bicycles, all of a sudden, I wouldn't say the streets are full, because they're not. Obviously, we're still on lockdown officially, but we're allowed out to exercise. So seeing people out running, walking on their bicycles, it's changed the whole atmosphere. So it's really feeling so much better. I feel everything. It feels like there's light at the end of the tunnel now. Really, really does. But it's still really tough for everybody. I mean, the economy is struggling. The government has given some small little things to. When Sal was speaking, my audio cut out, so I couldn't hear everything he said. So I apologize if I'm repeating. But we've had a few little. Well, I've had one payment, a small payment, just to help, which is nice as a self-employed person, and I might be eligible for a loan, a really good loan, business loan with great terms, which would be great, because it would just give me that liquidity to keep my assistant on, and my full-time retoucher. That would be really, really great. But other than that, I've been really busy. So I've been really, really busy retouching and editing for other photographers who have been working on their backlogs and getting albums done. I've also had a couple of past clients contact me asking me to do their albums for them. So I've been doing that as well. So I've been busy the whole time. I've got my daughter homeschooling. So between that, retouching, editing, I haven't been able to do all of the personal growth that I wanted to do. But it's looking up. It really is. I don't think I'm going to be shooting any weddings. Officially, my studio, I could be shooting people in my studio now. I'm officially on the list of businesses that could be doing that, but hair and makeup is out. So children might be a possibility. In fact, I've got a personal / business project lined up, in that I'm going to do portraits of my daughter's school class as a gift to the teachers, because it's her last year of elementary. So, and then they're not going to get to say goodbye. So I'm going to have them all one by one individually in the studio with social distancing and everything. And then we're going to prepare a really beautiful album, and then hopefully the parents will want to buy one. And so I'll slowly start working that. But for now, my future plans involve are continuing working with photographers, because I've actually found in lockdown that I really quite enjoy working from home most of the time. So I'm going to do more of that.
So great. It sounds like a lot of like what's been beneficial for you over the last 30 days is just sort of the mental health aspect of it, just being able to get out and
Yes.
get out of your house
Yeah.
and get some sun.
It was,
and,
I have to say, it goes on, it's like a cyclical thing. You know, it was terrible. And then it got much better. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. I've got this. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're down again. And then you're back around.
Right. Well, we're glad to hear that. All right. Last but not least in this round is Mr. New Jersey, Mr. Philadelphia. How about let's hear from Cliff?
Thanks,
And
Greg.
how about
Thanks
that?
for doing
And
this.
how about that growth on his face there? Obviously, Cliff has not been to the grocery store to buy any razors.
No, that's not going to happen. I think I'm going to keep it for a while. So, making me look young,
That's definitely a new look. I haven't seen that one before.
Well, what can I tell you? I'll sell you some for your hair, your head, if you want. So, I'm in New Jersey. I'm just south of my Princeton colleague there. It's very interesting to hear the other perspectives from around the world. It's very interesting as well to hear the success that Australia has had. I spoke to Rocco the other day, and Rocco mentioned there were 10 total cases out of the 23 or 24 million people in that country. When things have started to open up here, and some of the things, Greg, you wanted us to talk about were, our personal outlooks and whatnot. There's my pup. She has been
Chloe,
an absolute.
Chloe.
She's been a godsend to me, keeping me a lot of company. The golf course is open for me. That's a huge thing for me personally, and my emotional well-being. Mental health is a big issue, and when you're locked up, my kids have been coming every 10 days or so. 10 days here, 10 days at their mom. So they've been a blessing as well. A little bit about business, because this is a photography forum here. I've been very fortunate. I've only had 2 cancellations. I know some people have had none. I've had 2 outright cancellations. Most of my clients are moving till 2021. I just received an email just a few minutes ago whose wedding was supposed to be this June. They moved it to October 23rd. I don't have the heart to sit there and say to them, folks, there is no way in hell you're going to have a two-person 20. I think it was like 220 something people was invited to this wedding. I don't think there's any way in hell they're going to have a wedding in October. But who am I to say, hey, it's a bad idea? I'm just like, yes, I'm available. It's a Friday. Great. No problem. I've been very flexible with people. I've taken their retainer and I've just moved it. I haven't been charging them an additional retention fee. So the postponements have been going well. Next year seems like it's going to be a decent year, assuming that we'll be able to shoot these events. Don't mind Chloe in the background there. She does crack me up. I've been doing a lot of film scanning. So I've been doing a little bit with my time. I've gone to my studio. She's a little distracting. I've been going to my studio. I've been cleaning up 15 years of clutter. So that's been a nice personal project. And I've been uncovering a lot of film. And today I posted some stuff from Kellyanne Conway's wedding, which was 19 years ago. They were lovely people to work with, actually. No comments. And Greg, I promised you I wasn't going to get political. But I'm not going to get political. But what I am going to say is I find it a little bit frustrating when I see the results that Australia has had. 10 cases. Even if we had 23 million people in our entire country, I don't think we can get it down to 10 cases. We have people that are, going into state houses with guns, protesting. I think it's insane. I just think it's insane. That said, the reason why you're not seeing this in some other parts of the world, and maybe we are, but the United States isn't talking about it. Other countries are helping their citizens. Other countries are giving these people cushions. There are people here that are literally on friggin' bread lines that have never experienced this before. That's a problem. I did get PPP. I'm grateful I got PPP. I'm keeping my studio manager on as long as possible. But I just read an article yesterday that the Internal Revenue Service is going to flip a switch and basically change the rules and say it's taxable. How do you tax a loan? I don't know. So these are things that are very concerning to those who have gotten PPP and are small businesses. So I am a little bit all over the place, but I'm trying to keep it under 5 minutes here. The relationship with my clients has been growing beautifully. I did a video for a client that was supposed to get married this past Saturday. They asked people to do a little video, and they would play it for a very, very small little family gathering that they had. And it was wonderful. I gave them hope. I told them celebration is going to be wonderful when this is able to actually occur. I guess I am a little bit more pessimistic than others about anything occurring this year. So we're going to work on portraits. We're going to work on upselling albums, offering reprint sales. So we do have some income coming in. And, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to shoot these weddings next year. I truly hope so. Thanks, Greg, for giving me the opportunity to speak to everybody.
Sure, no problem. Wouldn't have it any other way there, buddy. Just by the way, I know in the last episode you said that you mentioned that you pay yourself rent, and I just wondered if you'd sent those guys over to break your kneecaps for not paying your studio rent yet.
Yeah, he's a real deadbeat, that guy. He's yeah.
So
I got PPP, so I'm okay for 8 or 10 weeks, whatever it is.
So I appreciate all that, guys. So I wanted to just kind of real quickly just kind of recap kind of like the changes in the shelter in place for you guys. So like I mentioned here in Virginia, we're still under shelter in place at least until June the 10th. And then we have to go 14 days. We have to go 14 days, 14 consecutive days before we can even consider going into phase 1. So hopefully we'll have a 14-day downturn before we get to June 10th. It's kind of interesting here in the D.C. area. It's really a 3-state area. So I do a lot of work in the District of Columbia. I live in Virginia. I do a lot of work in the District of Columbia, and I do a lot of work in Maryland. And they actually, their shelter-in-place rules are much less restrictive. In fact, I know Avi Gerver, I think, is watching this. He already has posted a question. But Avi, I think in Maryland, the shelter-in-place restrictions were coming off on the 15th, and I think that's the same for DC. So if you would just let me know that, I'd appreciate it. And so Sarah and Sal, now I know that you guys said, what specifically has changed as far as the shelter in place between where we were last time and now?
Well, like Sarah said before, I think that in all the world, I think we were the worst. Don't you think, Sarah? I think that we said stuck at home for 2 months. For 2 months, from the 10th of March until the 4th of May. Stuck at home, that means, like she said, like Sarah said, you need to sign up a legal paper and explain what you're doing and where you're going. You need a good reason to get out of your home. And we were able to, I remember in my city, when you go to the supermarket, when you go out, sometimes you can find the police stopping you and want to control what you buy. Because if you're buying 3 things, you're going to get a bill. Yeah. Because you need to get out from your home and go to store only for one reason. I mean, one time per week, do your shops for what you need at home in terms of what really you need, and that's it. No chance to go out nowhere. I remember that in Italy there were a lot of bills for people that going out with the dog. You were not able to do that. You need to stay straight close to your home and do like 200 meters. Which that means a lot. I mean, for 2 months, that's a lot. I don't think that.
So you guys went from that really restrictive, not being able to leave your house, having to itemize and list out everywhere you were going to go, to what now? Like, what's the level of restriction now?
Now it's better because you can open some, not all of them. We're still waiting for the restaurant and hairdresser. This will be at the end of this month. But actually, most of all the other stores and everything already open, but only half day. I open my studio at 9 o'clock and I close it at 1 o'clock, and that's it. 1 p.m. That's it. Half day with restriction, one client per time with mask and gloves. I need to buy the gloves and put it on front of once you get in. I need to stick something on the floor so you understand where you need to stop. And if someone gets in without a mask, I should ask him to go out, because if someone gets in, the police get in, you're going to do a bill to me as well, because as the owner of the studio, you should not let the people get in with nothing. So you see how, now it's better. We feel better. We're smiling now because we get out finally from our home. But it had been crazy.
You got a little suntan going there from some of that Mediterranean sun.
Yeah, right.
So you can now open your studio for half a day. You can have one client in at a time. Everybody wears masks and gloves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, Marcus, you and Rocco, what about you guys in Australia? What specifically has changed as far as the shelter in place there, if anything? Because I know you guys were pretty much shut down when we were here last time, right?
Yeah. The big thing. Sorry, you go, Rocco.
Go ahead, Rocco.
No, you go, Mike. No. Okay.
I was just going to
we had. You go.
I was going to probably say the biggest thing is that one family can go over to another family's house. I think that's probably the big thing. I mean, I've got 3 boys. The other big thing is that the senior school, like grade 11 and 12s, they've gone back to school as of Monday, and same with prep, until grade 1. So they're all back at school. So one of the things I got to say, man, hats off to anyone that's been homeschooling primary school people. I mean, like, it was just hard enough to do high school. But what a challenge. But yeah, so I think we've been really lucky and fortunate about how we've been able to progress. So what about you, Rocco? What have you seen? Because we live in different states.
Yeah, we different. Rules have been different. We were only to leave our homes if we were buying groceries or exercising or providing care to someone else. So what that means is that you couldn't visit, you couldn't do anything. So I'd be the only way I could sort of see my parents was I'd go and do the grocery shopping for them, and I was allowed to deliver the shopping and leave it at the front door, and speak to mum via the front door, and I was not allowed to enter, or because what's happened here, and neighbours have begun sort of dobbing each other in. For petty things like that. There was a car and they had visitors and so on and so on. And I know of people where the police have turned up. Like a friend of a friend, it was their son's birthday, and the friends would come along and drop presents at the front door and leave. The neighbour called the cops, and they basically they said, look, they're not doing anything illegal. They're not going inside. They're just dropping presents off at the door. So that's the sort of type of mentality that we've had here, which is kind of a little bit. Anyway, I'm not going to use the word because we're live in public. But what's happened now with the easing of the restrictions federally, and then each state now is implementing them at different sort of strategies. We're allowed now to have 5 visitors to your home, which is great. So that's been a huge change for us, because we've already penciled in our next week of social gatherings with people that we haven't seen, mainly family, like my sister, my parents, and cousins and people that we normally would hang out with, and friends as well. So that's been huge for our mental state, which is awesome. But yeah, it's been a big shift for us. But there's still a lot of caution out in the community of people coming close to each other. It's not mandatory here to wear a mask, so we don't have to do anything like that. So it's not that the government's saying you have to wear a mask. So that's been good. But people wear it. If you want to wear it, that's fine. But you do have to, social distancing is a big thing, and personal hygiene is a big thing. You've got to supply, like I know, like for us in the studio environment, if people come in, we have to supply hand sanitizer, and we have to have the appropriate markings of where people can stand and how close they can get to you and so on. So that's a big change for us.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I can't remember. Sorry, I had a
What
question
about
I
you,
was going to
Ed?
ask you. What's that?
What about just Sanjay? What about in
I'm going to
UK?
Sanjay right now. So Sanjay, what's different in the UK from when we were here last time?
They've become more complete. That's the thing. I mean, technically, nothing has been lifted. Well, apart from this week, where the Prime Minister sent out slightly nebulous message, which basically said, if you can work from home, work from home. If you absolutely can't, then go to work. And obviously, people are going to play games with this. So
Now, didn't your prime minister came down with COVID, right? Didn't your prime minister test positive? Yeah.
Yeah. He was apparently pretty much touch and go, and he's come back a more serious person than he was, compared to when he went in. The thing is that the guidelines for relaxing lockdowns are conditional over here. So there's big talk about this R number, which is the productive number. And the way it works is that if the R number is one person infecting one other person, if that number goes up, then obviously one person infecting one person. The idea is to try and get below one. Can't remember the number of deaths over here or the number of cases as of today. The conditions are that it keep the numbers, if we can keep managed, then they'll slowly release the lockdown measures or kind of relax them a little bit more. They're talking about certain hospitality things like cafes and restaurants being reopened by the beginning of July, if the numbers maintain themselves, which is good news because it means it starts to be more sociable. They're now starting to say that as of one member of one person of the household can come to visit you, which, like we've said, is light at the end of the tunnel. I focused on right at the beginning is the light at the end of the tunnel, the time when we actually get to see our friends and family again. So on one hand, where we've been handed a certain amount of hope that things are changing, we're heading to some kind of resolution, even if we're not heading to some sort of outright resolution in terms of a vaccine. I mean, no doubt that they will opt for something like this, and they probably won't comment on anything like that because of false hopes and so on. But the relaxation of some of these measures is really good news. And there's talk of small weddings being reintroduced by sort of July or August. But again, there's no real guidance on how people behave. The risk is that if they announce relaxation measures too quickly, then people will become complacent and then all of a sudden work down again. So it needs to be maintained, and people need to be intelligent. So I know you want to switch to another speaker now, but I just read on the news about this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. It's shocking. There were a public transport worker, London Underground worker, and her colleague, who had one of them had underlying respiratory issues, and somebody who basically she was putting herself at risk working for the public transport, and somebody had spat at her, and they basically threatened her, said, "I've got COVID-19." 5 days later, her and her passed away from COVID-19.
It was intentional.
Shocking. Yeah,
it was intentional.
It's shocking. Apparently,
yeah, there was a case like that here in the U.S. Early on, where there was a bus driver who complained that somebody got on the bus and coughed on him, and then he eventually became positive and he died. So, yeah. those situations
So,
are definitely
I
out
think
there.
whilst in Italy, you guys over there had a pretty rough time in Iceland and kind of been forced to, stay indoors. I on one, I really applaud the government for being so strict and keeping control. And part of me thinks that actually over here there needed to be those sorts of permit to more than anything to temper people, to let them know that they are being watched. There is some kind of regulation in effect, and if you break that, well, there's going to be some sort of penalty. And I wonder if this sort of incident would have happened if there was that level of policing in the UK.
Yep.
I have to say, you're right. I mean, while it was frustrating and difficult, it did work. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm happy that, well, it's, it's worked. We don't have Australia's numbers, but compared to where we were, we're hovering about 1,000 new cases a day.
Yeah.
Which is it's a massive reduction. It really is. So I'm just absolutely terrified that with the loosening of the measure, it's still very strict. We can't have families visiting each other unless there's a list of who is on the list of people you can visit. You can't visit friends, for example. That's like, Sal is smiling because there's a joke in Italy about the word congiunti, which is, what does it mean? Is a girlfriend a congiunto, and how do they? Is it a serious girlfriend? Is it, do you have to be engaged? Do you have to show a ring? All of it, if they stop you, all of that kind of
In
thing.
Italy, it's always all about art. You say something, but it means a lot of things. You see?
Yeah, exactly, the interpretation.
Nothing is
But
clear.
Hey, Greg, can I ask our Italian friends a quick question?
Sure.
Sarah and Sal, in Italy, has there been any social help programs regarding, like in America, we have some programs for small businesses, and
I'd like for Marcus and Rocco to answer that question too.
yeah, just what has been done for some
And
of
Sanjay,
the
is there anything in
citizens
the UK?
there? Financial assistance over here, it's like unemployment, which is it's just been abysmal, the rollout of that here for many people. How about yourselves? What help have you seen from your fellow citizens and fellow business people?
Do you mean from the government?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
To allow you to shelter in place without starving.
Yeah. Okay. So there is. They requested that people who could do what they call smart working in Italy, so working from home. For larger businesses, there's something called Cassa Integrazione, which is similar to furlough in the UK. That's always there in Italy. So, but it's a strict procedure. It's not available to everybody. It's just you have to go through. You almost have to be. I don't quite know exactly how it works, but you almost have to. It's almost like a pre-bankruptcy stage that you go through, where the government can step in and pay a certain percentage of employees to protect them for a given period. That's been extended, I think, to another
9 weeks.
I think it's been
So 18 weeks, totally 18 weeks now. 18 weeks now.
Okay. So there are a lot of people on Cassa di Integrazione at home, not working, but being paid 80% of their salary. But I think that it's touch and go as to whether they'll have a job at the end of it. That's not guaranteed. Small businesses, I received €600 for March, which, okay, better than nothing. I was quite surprised actually when it arrived. I was like, oh my God, what is this? I wasn't expecting it. I've applied for we have access to a business loan. The banks, the government is guaranteeing small loans for small businesses. And I was eligible for a 15,000 loan, but the bank has said that it'll be at least June before they can even look at it, because they've just got so many applications. They're overloaded with it. So luckily I'm okay. I'm not dead, because they said, you need to have patience. It's not going to be straight away. Well, luckily for me, I'm okay. But I can imagine some businesses desperately need it, and they're not going to get it, I don't think, for a few months at least. Sal, do you have any Any more info
I
on
just
that?
wanna add what Sarah said. That the thing is, yes, I have my employee that he's in Casa Integrazione, right? So the government should pay him, but he's not getting no money yet. He needs to wait.
Oh, really?
So it's yes, that's the big problem. And also, if you ask money for this particular moment, they're gonna give you the money only for a few of them. Have a lot of restrictions. Not you don't. It's just not because you have a business that means that you can own it. It depends what type of business you have, and also once you get the money, you need to every time you're spending money, that money you need to explain what you need to do. So it's crazy. I mean, I know that it's tough. I think it's tough everywhere, but it's not so. I mean, they saying they're helping, but actually, it's not happening. Think about
Yeah.
my employee that I paid him until the end of March, and then I said, okay. So after 1 month that we were locked down, I said, okay, now in April you stay at home. And since then, now we are at the half of May, 1 month and a half. You didn't get no money yet, which is
Jose, you got PPP too, right?
Yeah.
That's the loan. Is that the loan program?
It's called the Paycheck Protection Program.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We have something here in the U.S. that basically to keep there's a lot of restrictions. It's basically used for rent. It's used to pay our employees. It's used to pay utilities. There are stringent rules to it in order for it to be absolutely forgiven. But now some of those rules are actually changing on the fly.
Yeah, of course.
Which we were never told about. So these are some of the things that are frustrating a lot of small businesses in the States. But
Right.
Greg?
I just wanted to see if Marcus and Rocco, is there any kind of government assistance available in Australia, and have you been able to take advantage of it?
Yeah,
I'm going to go first.
You too.
I don't want to get bogged down in this too much because we're sort of below 15 minutes now, and I have some other business things I'd like to get to. So I just, just curious
I think
if it's there
in Australia
and if
we
you've been
are
able to
fortunate.
use it.
Sadly, like any other place, that there's there's some people that aren't eligible for the scheme, and other people are. So I think from that side of things, we are fortunate. It's not a lot of money, but it's getting us through, and we're able to pay employees and pay our rent and things like that. So I think the hard thing though is on a personal level, what I found really difficult is not to be able to we've had really minimal income come in, or being able to earn any income for the last 2 months. And I think from a personal side of things, that's really hard to handle. And I don't know exactly why. It's just because I've normally been able to always earn money, but I think no matter whatever government assistance you do get, I think everyone's feeling being quite restrictive in this as well.
Right, Sanjay, is there anything available in the UK, and have you been able to take advantage of it?
No.
Nothing?
We have apparently grants that we can have access to, and we've applied for the grants. And these are for the businesses. These are for small businesses, and we have what we call business rates. So depending on how large your premises is, if you have a pay business rate, even if you're a small business, and they have something called rate relief, where you don't have to pay it, but there's a rateable value to your premises. Now, depending on which bracket you sit in, you're eligible for one amount or another amount, but the local authorities are inundated. So we applied this month. We've not heard anything. We get automated emails to say we're working on it. You'll hear from us by the end of the month. And I think they won't email you to say you've got it or not. You'll either the money will be in your bank account or not. So it's a waiting game. And then there's something called the business bounce back loan, which is the government loan, which is the interest for you guys. I think you guys have 1% or something like we have a loan which is, I think it's interest free for if I'm not mistaken, 6 months or maybe 12 beyond it's percent, but it's a 6-year loan in total. So in a sense, it's this loan you're ever going to get from anywhere. Now, again, the amount that you're eligible for just on your account as well. So kind of have to jump through hoops and submit some information. And, that's done through banks. So there are certain banks which are part of the scheme. Each bank has its own system and is inundated, has its own inert and red tape, and that's causing delays. So, we've been through this with our and made the application and haven't heard anything. So, we've been basically surviving on our own, our own resourcefulness, B, wonderful clients who have been continuing to honor their payment, the original payment terms of whether it's been delayed or not. And all the great brands that I work with as well, they've been keeping me busy. So they've been sending work. And like a lot of you, past clients who are into picking their album images, all that sort of thing, suddenly, have this abundance of time, and they're sending their image selections in. And, usually with albums, if you do it right, there's usually a certain amount of upgrade and upscaling, sort of potential at that stage. So they may have, paid for whatever it is in the initial investment. There's always more that needs to be bolted on afterwards because they've picked too many images or they want an upgrade or something or another. So avenues of income in that sense as well. But, like everyone else here as well, I'm sure we've all taken time to streamline opportunities and the business, our businesses, to see where.
Let's move on, because I don't want to get bogged down here. So let's move on. I want to talk a little bit. We're sort of in the less than 10 minutes here, so I want to talk a little bit about inquiries, and let's keep these answers concise, guys. Are you guys seeing inquiries for this year, next year? Not at all. Jose, how about you?
Yeah.
You got your audio is off.
Corbin, go ahead.
Go ahead, Corbin.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting a handful of inquiries for events this year, but I'm not super hopeful. And honestly, I don't think that the clients are hopeful either for this year, but I think they're just sort of feeling things out. I haven't had anything specifically booked for 2020. I'm getting quite a few inquiries for 2021. But again, I think people are reluctant to pull the trigger. And at the same time, wouldn't it be great to just book a wedding? Like, I feel like it just would feel like such a win to book some new work. And I really would love a wedding.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful. It's tricky with 2021. I don't know that we're going to have a vaccine. I don't know what events are going to look like. But I came from a background starting with small destination weddings. So I'm just expecting to maybe return more to that type of celebration, which suits me just fine. But I'm definitely seeing quite a few inquiries daily, 2 or 3 a day.
And how about you, Jose?
Yeah, same. About 2 or 3 inquiries a day.
For this year, next year, or where are they kind of falling?
Kind of mostly for 2021. But I actually just recently booked 2 weddings for this year, which is for 50 guests or less here locally, all local here in Santa Barbara, which is actually where I started. I started not doing destination work. It was all local. So I feel like we're going kind of back to basics, which I'm totally okay with that. As long as, we can at least be busy. I do know that some of the hotels are opening up mid-June, some of these bigger, beautiful resorts. So apparently they are able to host events with 50 guests or less, from what I understand.
And how about in Australia, Barkus? Are you and Rocco, are you seeing inquiries this year or next year? Where's it mainly falling?
Yeah, for me, actually, the last couple of weeks, I'm actually seeing inquiry levels back to pre-COVID already. Because generally we get a lot of bookings for. Or a lot of inquiries for this time of year for next year. So I'm seeing that. On a personal side of things, like I guess, but I'm finding that like I'm a little bit hesitant to to book them because it feels that there's so many things up in the air. But it's funny. I mean, I've got a question for the whole group. I mean, you guys enjoying your Saturdays? Like normally we miss out on our weekends. I'm gonna say it's been like it's been nice.
I never thought I'd miss a crowded dance floor, but I actually do. Personally,
I don't miss hearing shout and and the Macarena blaring in my ears every evening.
they don't play Macarena at my weddings, Greg.
That's too bad. You're not doing the fun ones.
That's right.
How about in Italy? Are you guys seeing an uptick in inquiries for this year, for next year? Where's it kind of falling?
Sal?
Well, my feeling is the mind of my clients want to think that maybe they will be able to get married at the end of September or maybe October. But the feeling is maybe we can do some wedding. Perhaps someone wants to get married with only 50 guests, which is here in my area, it's impossible. But I really think it will be for next year. I mean, what happened if I do only 10 weddings? I mean, it's not a big deal. So everything is postponed for next year for sure.
Mm. How about you, Sanjay? Are you seeing an uptick for this year or for next year or not at all?
Yeah, for next year mainly. In fact, I think I've had 1 or 2 inquiries for the end of this year. But there's so much uncertainty. No one knows how large a wedding, how large a weddings we'll have at the end of this year. All the inquiries are for next year, and we've been taking bookings for next year. Actually, took a nice destination one for next year to be report. But I think what will happen. My gut is that when things are lifting more significantly than they are now, there'll be a surge in last minute ones. I'm sure there'll be the bargain hunters amongst those as well, but I think last minute ones, there'll be people who just get engaged. They'll get engaged and they'll want to get married this year as quick as possible. So, we just need to be agile and ready to pounce.
Great. So we're getting close to the end of our time. I have kind of 2 questions I want to get to. And one of them is I wanted to talk about Corbin a little bit, about how it felt jumping on that airplane last week and flying out to Texas to actually shoot a wedding, and how many of you guys would be willing to do something like that now?
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I went after we had been, my family had isolated in the house for several weeks beyond the 14-day period. So there was certainly a level of concern about, I wanted to make sure that I was safe to travel, that I was not extending any sort of sickness to anyone else. So we were really strict on, we stocked up on groceries super early and then just didn't leave the house. And so when I left, I had a level of confidence that things would be okay. It was surprising. The travel was interesting. I flew to Dallas. I was in a middle seat of a jam-packed flight. And that really came as a shock to me. I was expecting what we've all been hearing, that they've blocked off seats, that there's 3 people on the airplane. That was absolutely not the case. I found it to be very frightening, the travel aspect of it. And then when I got to the hotel in Dallas, I actually felt quite safe at the hotel. I did Uber Eats all weekend, so I didn't have any interaction, with restaurants or anything like that. But and the hotel was basically empty. I rented a car. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going in any Ubers. The event itself, it was really good. It was good to get back to a wedding. It was very joyful. I think that they were really trying to make the most of course, an unfortunate postponement in their day, but they had all isolated
what kind
as
of measures?
well.
What kind of measures were in place there? I mean, everybody wearing masks and gloves, and
so not masks and gloves, but they had isolated together, and they were within their rights in Texas. Texas had opened up, and this was a legal wedding. So, I think if I were presented with a scenario where I was doing something illegally, that would be outside of my comfort level. But do I want New Jersey to open up right now? Absolutely not. I don't think we're ready. by any stretch. I don't even know when there are plans for that, but down there it did seem to be kind of a different scene. This was a small event. Would I ask my team to come shoot with me? I don't think so, and but I wanted to go ahead and take care of my client. It was sort of a one-time thing. I don't know that I'll have too many more weddings this season, but it was weird. Like the travel was weird. The wedding was great,
how about the rest of you guys? Cliff, I know you probably would not, right?
I just don't think it's worth it, personally.
I should chime in and can I chime in and say that I did isolate when I got back, because I'm with you. There's like such a health concern. I have a 3-year-old, and I have been isolated in my studio. So
Corbin, we should talk. We're about 40 minutes apart. So
yeah, we got to get together when all this is over.
Absolutely.
How about you, Rocco?
Greg,
Rocco?
Greg.
Would you be up for shooting a wedding now?
No. No.
Sanjay, what
I
about
think
you?
I'm just. Yeah, no.
No, go ahead. How about you, Sanjay? Would you be up for doing a wedding now?
Just the fear of just being close to someone. When I freak out going to the supermarket.
And I remember before you said you had a little bit of a scare when you came back from WPPI. You had a bit of a fever and had the flu, and you thought you had the
I did. I felt really ordinary and had a really high temperature. Went to the doctors. I didn't have COVID, but I did have the flu, and that was pretty scary. And that kind of scarred me a little bit, knowing that you could get that sick, and that was pretty bad with a very big chest infection. And I thought, and listening to people that I know personally that have had COVID and what they've been through, scary stuff. I just can't. Yeah, even the thought of being close to a stranger now just freaks me out. So interesting to see how we'll go being a wedding photographer moving forward.
No, how about you, Sanjay? Would you shoot one right now?
It's a curious one. I'm with one hand, going to the super, and you see just people being so blasé about the situation. Just it freaks me out too. But on the other hand, I can't wait to get back to a wedding and start shooting these things. So my brain is saying no, my heart's saying yes. It's very confusing.
Salvatore, I can tell that you're jumping at the bit to shoot one. You would. I think you would do it right now.
Well, maybe if I have a chance, I'll be assistant and not a photographer, so I don't need to talk with no one. Just stand there and have an excuse to get out of my home and just try to work.
How about you, Sarah? Would you shoot one now?
No.
No.
What about you, Greg?
I would actually. And I would, and I don't say that. I don't say that to be cavalier, because anybody who has been cavalier about this whole thing has not had a good outcome. From the kid, the NBA player who was going around rubbing on the microphones, to the guy that was all over Facebook this week who said it was all a bunch of bullshit, and he ended up having it and passed away from it. So I don't say that to be cavalier. But I would probably do it. I shot a headshot for a client last week, and it was all done. I shot it in their garage, and we all stayed away from each other, and I think it was fine. And so I don't think that I would be really hesitant to shoot a
What
wedding.
about the guy in the center square, Jose?
Yeah.
Jose, would you?
Yeah, I would, but I don't know that I'm ready to get on a plane right now. I would definitely do local events. And if I can, I would only do it myself. I'm kind of with Corbin. I probably would not have my assistants or second shooters come if it's a small event. No need to have.
How about you, Marcus?
Yeah, I think for me, like because of where we are in Australia at the moment, and it was an outdoor wedding, a small outdoor wedding, I would do it. I think at the moment is that like I'm just hanging to see that beautiful joy and that love and that togetherness. Again, I'm just hanging for it. You know what I mean? Even though I was joking, or not joking, but like it was like it's been nice to have a few Saturdays off. But man, I just can't wait to get back into it. There's something special that I think makes us human and makes us all wedding photographers. And gets us out there and doing it. So can't wait for it.
All right, so I know we're just a little bit over time. I had one last question I wanted to get to, and that was about new revenue streams. So have you guys figured out any new revenue streams other than like doing albums or offering additional products or album upgrades or things like that? Have you figured out any additional revenue streams? One thing that Tracy and Dee mentioned last time that I thought was interesting is pivoting your business based on what the situation is. So, for example, if there's not going to be any more 400-person weddings, are you ready to pivot your business and start catering to that 10-person market or the 10 wedding guest market? So, have any of you guys started doing anything like that? Yeah.
I have plans to. I'm already quite diverse.
Hold on, Sarah. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So I know, like, one thing Tracy and Dee talked about is they were tailoring their business for elopements. So as you guys have already mentioned, you think that next year there's going to be a boom in weddings because you think, for one, we're going to have all the weddings that we would normally have had for 2021, but then also all these postponed weddings that are moving to 2021. So I think we're all going to have opportunity to work on days that we might not otherwise had, but also a lot of people may shift to smaller events. And so I think being prepared for sort of those smaller elopements or maybe that 10-person wedding is something that you should have in your business plan. So I'm just curious if any of you guys are starting to make those kind of adjustments to what you're doing for the future. So I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm working on an elopement package as well, but more geared toward, it's essentially a portrait package, but reframing that as an elopement. I think there are probably going to be a lot of those.
Sarah, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say it's. I think I'm going to have to change when it comes to weddings, I'm going to have to change things quite a bit because my clients are almost all non-Italians who have flown to Northern Italy to get married and flown all of their guests to Northern Italy. So the big problem is that uncertainty of knowing where we're going to be, even in 2021. Can they fly 50 people from Australia or 100 people from the UK? What's going to happen if this blows up again? There's so much uncertainty that I think I'm going to have to rethink. I was already shooting smaller. I already shot quite a lot of small weddings, but and a lot of weekday as well. But I think I will definitely have to look more at the domestic market rather than and just rethink things completely. So just because of that uncertainty, as I say, I had like Cliff, I've had one hard cancellation request, which because of that uncertainty, because of the having to reschedule 80 people from Australia and the fact that they just didn't know when or if that would ever be possible. So they just decided, look, we need to get married somewhere else. I didn't refund them in the end. They understood that that wasn't necessary, and it was fine in the end. But yeah, it's being in that, not having local weddings makes it doubly complicated. So I'm definitely going to have to rethink the way that I start marketing my wedding business.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the pivot.
Go ahead.
The pivot side. I'm entirely sure that here in the UK, certainly with our business model, we to worry about the size of weddings because our weddings could be any sort of size. It could be a wedding that's just got 10 people. It could be a wedding that's got 1,000. At the end of the day, regardless of the number of guests, we're still going to apply 100% of our effort. So, for me, I'm not concerned about the size of the event. It comes down to a logistical thing that with the brides and grooms, but just in terms of different revenue streams, look, as wedding photographers, we generally portrait as well, unless you're a pure PJ photographer, but we have great skill. So it's about time. Certainly for me, I tapped into that skill a lot more, and I think that's something that we're going to. Not I think it is something that we're actually putting into place moving forward, so that we kind of the income stream throughout the year. If there's any kind of disruption like there is with weddings, at least it's something that we can do in small. It can be done socially distanced if we get to a pandemic stage again, or there's a second or something like that. But this has also given me the opportunity to create some educational content, which I've been doing for different brands with, and learning how to do this stuff on my own. So, having to literally do everything, the production, lighting, the technical, the audio. It's been a learning curve, and really geared me up to create lots of content moving forward, which I'll be doing, because if lockdown's extended, I've got time to do content now, and if nothing else, at least try a bit more trial and error before I create the final content for it to go out there, because there's now people are sitting in front of their phones or their tablets or laptops learning how to do things they wouldn't normally do. So yeah.
Anybody else? I actually think we've lost Jose. I think he sent me he just texted me and said he got disconnected and he's having trouble getting back on. Anybody else have any closing thoughts? I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I promised these guys we'd get them out of here in 90 minutes, and we're a little bit over, so I wanna try to keep my word as close as possible.
Jose looks very stoic, though, doesn't he?
He does.
I know, he really does. At least it's a good
does.
freeze frame.
That's right.
He knows how to hold very still.
He knows how to hold that pose.
Damn good looking guy. Look at that.
Anybody have any closing thoughts?
Just be safe, hang in there. Let's book some weddings.
Yeah, but what I was trying to say was the last question, about what will change. For me, will not change nothing. I mean, in terms of, it will not change a lot. My point of view will be the same. I mean, if I have 300 guests or 30 guests, the point of view, it's always the same. I mean, I'm always focusing my couple. What is going to change is my approaching. I need to figure out how to get to it, and about posing and create reaction. But you know what? I think that the good thing about all of us, the humans, that we get used to it. I mean, we got to learn. We're gonna go through it anyway. I mean, because it's about business, it's about earning money. I mean, maybe if I was a photographer that maybe we're shooting like 20 weddings per year, for sure I will think about something to do different from a wedding. But who's shooting, let's say, 50, 60, 70 weddings per year? I don't think it's going to be a big change. I don't really think that's so necessary. Think that you need to think at something else. I mean, for me, I don't think it's a problem today. I don't think that will be a big problem next year, shooting my weddings, and I have someone with a mask, or at the end of the year with a mask or not mask. I don't know, 80 people, 50 people. It's not a big deal. I think that's not going to change. It's not a big deal. What I'm doing is I'm refining my packaging. I'm creating other two packaging, because I'm not going to go down with my price, but I'm going to have a smart way just to, in case a client come up, a tough time. It's like the clients always, we have the tough time. We never have tough time. So what I'm trying to do is try to create another two packaging different, so I can get the client in as well with a good price. And, that's what I'm doing. But I think that is natural for everyone.
All right. Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, I think timing's critical at the moment. We've gone ahead and we've done a strategy for so many different things in relation to, income streams. I feel that here we'll go back to normal in relation to weddings and everything like that. But right now, for me, the things that I worked out, we could be contacting, all our clients regarding albums, going back to old portrait sales, all of those things that, we've discussed about previously. But for me, I worked out it, timing is critical. At the moment, I don't actually believe for my business and for my clients, it's the right time for me to contact them, because people are handling this all differently, in all different ways. There's some people out there are totally unaffected, both emotionally and financially. Other people, fighting struggles with one or the other. And I just know that when you put everything out there, that our return for the effort that I'm going to put in will probably end up being quite minimal. But if I wait and be patient and still keep these strategies in place, and then apply them a little bit down the track, that I can see that I'll get a better return for my investment. So right now what I'm seeing is investing in myself, and reviewing and going back to the personal work that I love photographing and producing that, and that's where I think I'm seeing a better return in my investment at the moment. And I think because I asked myself the honest question, is that one thing I'm not good at is getting a negative response. And if I got that every day, and putting it out there, and that's just going to beat me up. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm looking for positivity wherever I can get it at the moment. And, some days that's in the water and with a surf, other days it's working images, and being with family and friends, and trying to make the most of it.
I mean, I think that's an interesting point you make about clients, because, I mean, most of us assume because our industry is sort of in the toilet that everybody else is in the same boat, and actually everybody else really isn't in the same boat. In fact, I've talked to some people recently who are actually doing better in some ways, because maybe they're retired or they have lower, they still have some income streams, but they're also able to, they've been able to qualify for assistance from the government. So they're actually making more money than they were before this happened. So I don't know how that happens, but I know there are some people like that. But one of the things we talked about, and I thought last show, Sanjay made some really good points, and he made some good points today about not rushing to alter your pricing, that there shouldn't be a race to the bottom, because you can't, just because your situation, your financial situation is not good right now, it doesn't mean that everybody else's is. And I mean, one of the first things that I learned when I got into this business was not to price my weddings based on what I could afford. And so I do think, we need to consider going forward that yeah, it's a bad financial time for people in our industry, but for a lot of our clients, they're actually not, other than maybe taking a big hit on their 401k, they're actually still drawing a paycheck and still making money just like they always have. Rocco, you have anything closing you want to add?
Yeah, one of the things that that it's become annoying to listen to is that, we're all in this together and we're all in the same boat. I beg to differ, because it kind of affects your mental approach to the way you have to think about things. I believe that, yes, we're all in the same ocean, but we've all got different boats, yeah? Not everyone's got a luxurious yacht to sail these turbulent waters, and some people have got a raft made out of bamboo, and as long as you know how to guide the vehicle that you have through these waters and not comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing, I think that's the key. The generalization that we're all in this together, we're all in the same boat, that's a load of crap, I have to say, because all of a sudden, the minute you stop comparing yourself to a different industry or someone else, then you start to act for what's important for you. That's important, okay? And that's the key. That's the key that sort of has helped me with my mental struggles getting over this.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up unless anybody has anything really compelling they feel like they need to get out right now.
I'd like to just add comment to what Rocco said, actually, if that's okay.
Sure.
It's, I hear it all the time. I'm guilty of saying it, but I think context is a thing as well. We talk about industry in our or other industries. It doesn't really matter, actually. I do agree with you. The sentiment, though, that's together, that we're all, regardless of creed, color, language, country, whatever it is, age, religion, we're all at risk from COVID-19. And no one really knows what the risk to eat is different for different people. And could get away with it. Some people could just suffer really badly and, they're one day and gone the next. I know people who that's happened to. So I think we're all in this together, is that we're all at risk. That's the greater context. In our industry, I completely. I think it's we've got to look at our own of our own businesses, and take this time to reevaluate our clientele as well. Something I've always said, and Greg said last time I spoke about pricing and that kind of thing. Stand your ground. If you're not going to take this opportunity to business, this is the opportunity to re-strategize and try and market to the next clientele who have bigger bank accounts, who can weather this sort of storm now. And of course, everybody's being one way or another. So, clients who are more wealthy and more well off, they're more financially resilient. Are those the clients who make your clients case use this time now, this opportunity to understand how they operate, what their mentality is, and upgrade your clientele? So that's just kind of my closing thought on that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys hanging in for a little extra time today. I appreciate you coming back, and maybe in a month, depending on where we are, maybe we can get the band together one more time and have one more little get together. But I hope for all.
But we need to hear from Jose.
Yeah, we do. I want to hear his last thoughts.
I mean, if anybody was going to freeze up, I mean, he locked the stair, didn't he?
That's perfect.
He just really locked it down.
He's drinking right now. You know that.
Love it. Yeah.
He did just text me. He legitimately has some kind of connection error. He sent me a screenshot.
That's funny.
He didn't just ditch us. He legitimately has some kind of error getting back on.
That's a cardboard cutout.
He nailed the exit.
He's got a margarita watching a sunset.
In fact, hang on.
Thank you, Greg.
He did the screen grab and then left, didn't he? That's what he did.
I got to get a picture of this.
You know, you can do a screen grab, Greg.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for all the good information. Thanks for all your patience. And I wish everybody the best. Everybody stay safe. All of you guys stay safe. Don't sit at home by yourself. If you're struggling, talk to somebody, talk to other photographers, get yourself some help, but don't sit at home. Social distancing does not mean social isolation. Become part of an organization. Get on Zoom and find some friends. They're out there for you. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks again for coming to The Real Picture. This is where we bring photography issues into focus. And so with that, we will see you next time.